Drag racing's fastest meet the Navy's finest. A kaleidoscope of color with a Rembrandt of the racetracks, the fabricator and the photographer, and a special day at the races. From the Winston Invitational at the Rockingham International Dragway in Rockingham, North Carolina, these stories and more on the video magazine of championship drag racing, NHRA Today. The Sand Hills region of North Carolina surrounds Rockingham International Dragway with the green of spring. But in the air is the scent of gold, because this is the site of the $300,000 Winston Invitational, one of the highest paying events on the NHRA calendar. Hello everyone, I'm Steve Evans and welcome to NHRA Today. Preparations are underway here at Rockingham for this major drag racing confrontation. But in the meantime, here's what's coming up in the next half hour. Bob Fry will introduce you to a Texas couple, John Harrison and Barbara Lewis, who have made drag racing the focus of their careers. Don Garlitz will explain the ins and outs of those smoky, show-stopping burnouts. And Dave McClellan will show us drag racing through the eyes of some young and enthusiastic competitors. But first, let's go to Jacksonville, Florida, to find out what happens when the crews of the fastest cars on the ground meet up with the skilled technicians who keep high-tech Navy aircraft in the skies. The modern-day drag racing car and the supersonic fighter planes of the U.S. Navy may seem to be worlds apart, but they do share some traits. Both are highly sophisticated, performance-oriented thoroughbreds that take a special breed of individual to pilot.
We take it right to the edge and know when we get there, and the same with the drivers and all the professional sports.
Those all-important traits that single out flyers and racers are also found in the support crews that keep both types of machines running on the edge of the performance envelope.
The trust and confidence that we have to have in our crew chiefs, maintenance technicians that work on the airplanes, very similar to what they have to have when they're driving sub-5, 290 miles an hour.
To bring these two similar worlds together, a pit stop competition was staged recently at Cecil Naval Air Station near Jacksonville, Florida. And like long-lost spiritual cousins, the racing crowd and their Navy counterparts began to compare notes. Mark Oswald, who not only drives but crews on his funny car, discovered that fast engine changes are not limited to the racetrack.
They can literally change an engine in one of these planes as fast as we can, the race car, so that was pretty amazing to me. I thought it would have been a little more involved than that.
Lori Johns got her pointers from the pilot's perspective.
One of the pilots was telling me they thought that we had more of a surge of power, and that's probably true, but we don't experience the type of G-force they do for the extended amount of time that they do.
Once all the preparations had been made, the focus of the day began. A sea of servicemen surrounded the pit stop area to find out which racing team would be able to fire up their engine, let it run for 15 seconds, then do a complete piston change and restart. The pace was hectic, to say the least. Watching intently during the event was machinist mate second class Michael Daly, who had overseen the installation of the jet engine that morning.
It was amazing, the mechanical genius that the way these things are put together, just the technique that they have, you know, the precision that they do their work and everything.
Other naval personnel saw many similarities to their own job duties.
I was impressed. They obviously know what they're doing. They work well together as a team, and they could probably work a flight deck right alongside our guys with a little bit of training.
Slim margins of victory are nothing new in drag races, but that carried over to the pit stop competition as well, with the Oswald-led funny car crew capturing victory by mere seconds. The race team's performance left Commander Stevens on the edge of staging an impromptu draft.
I'd trade them 1 for 1 in a heartbeat, maybe 1 for 2, because our guys, I'd hate to give up.
To cap off the day and leave a lingering impression in the minds of everyone, Oswald lit up the tires in an impressive burnout. And as the smoke cleared, both racers and sailors knew that a deep common bond had been formed.
I think today has been a classic example of how the two different communities can come together and share a lot of similar aspects in their different professions.
NHRA Today is being brought to you by Firestone, makers of Firehawk Performance tires for the street, the track, and the strip. Tires that meet the test. And by Castrol GTX, the motor oil that provides maximum protection against viscosity and thermal breakdown.
Dial 1-900-468-NHRA.
The Guardian, rated R. Starts Friday, April 27th.
The sport of drag racing is constantly changing. But for the fan at home or here at the racetrack, the best way to keep track of the action is by joining NHRA. For only $42 per year, you receive the NHRA rulebook, patch, pin, and window decal, plus the Bible of the Quarter Mile National Dragster. And if you act right now and call the number on your screen, you also will receive free a copy of Drag Racing 89, Diamond P Sports review of all the racing action from last year. So call now. At any NHRA national event, racing fans can get an insider's viewpoint simply by buying a pit pass, which allows them up close to the cars and the crews. And this also gives them, I think, a greater appreciation of all of the detail work that goes into preparing these magnificent machines. Dave McClelland has this report on a racing craftsman who relies on a steady hand and an artistic eye.
Drag racing has become one of the most popular types of racing in America. Some spectators are attracted by the sound. Some are drawn by the speed, and others the thrills. But there are also those race fans who are lured by the beauty of the sport, believing that how a car looks is just as important as how fast it runs. To these fans, the car's appearance is often more eye-catching and exciting than the race itself. Tom Stratton is one of those fans. As a spectator in the early 60s, Stratton developed a passion for the brilliant colors and intricate designs on the bodies of top fuelers. Stratton began painting cars for pleasure, and like so many other drag racers, crew chiefs, and chassis builders, what began as a diversion turned into a full-time job.
As time progressed, I started making more money with a little hobby than I did at my job, so I quit my job.
Over the last 25 years, Stratton has painted hundreds of racers, concentrating mostly on dragsters and funny cars. His list of customers includes some of the most famous names in the sport.
In the old days when we used to do a lot of colors, it would probably take 3 days or so to paint a car. And now, start to finish, it's probably a 9 to 10 day turnaround now.
The current procedure takes longer because there are many more steps involved, and the car is in sections during most of the prep and paint work.
This is actually a complete body shell off of a Pontiac Trans Am.
Once the body panels have been sanded and primed, the final color is applied, along with a clear coat for added gloss and protection. When it's all dry, the car is put back together for pinstriping and signage. Lettering is made easier by the latest addition to the shop, a computerized sign-making machine, which is operated by Stratton's wife, Ann.
Let's make that 29 inches.
29 inches.
Specifics such as letter size and style are keyed into the computer, and then a pattern is printed out. Decals and vinyl signs can also be printed this way.
We use ours basically 4 patterns, and we will then transfer that pattern to the car and then hand paint it with sign paint.
But not all detail work is done with the computer's help. In fact, most is painted freehand. This traditional approach offers Stratton an outlet for his creativity. Yet despite the long hours, paint fumes, and tedious detail work, Stratton says he wouldn't want to be doing anything else.
In the beginning, it was just a deal of pride in work and being able to stand back and have instant gratification at the point of finish and having other people say, that's a beautiful car. I'm just very lucky that I can make a living doing what I like. Very few people can do that. Pretty fortunate guy, actually.
Castrol presents the GTX Pipeline, the latest news from the world of drag racing.
You know, when last we saw funny car racer Art Hindy in his Tinker Toy Trans Am, he was up to his ankles in the Pomona sand trap. In later interviews, Art said what he really needed was to hook up with a new sponsor. Well, his wish has come true, thanks to Ron Todoran.
We hit it off, and they need some help financially, and I'm willing to do it, and we're gonna go for the big one. But we're coming back with a complete new look, a new car, new trailer, new colors, new everything.
Well, the final word, or words, on anything that happens in the funny car ranks usually comes from John Force. John sold Hindi and Todoran his spare car.
I'm very excited, Steve, to see the racers coming back. We hate to lose any after losing Verdome and Bernstein. And as you know, Art's an excellent racer. They'll be tough on the circuit, and I was able to sell them a car and make money.
Steve, one of the most exciting races on the entire NHRA Winston Tour is this Winston Invitational here at Rockingham International Dragway. A select field of the superstars in the sport are campaigning for over $300,000 in cash prize money. But for only a few cents, you folks at home can certainly keep up to date with all the action. How? You just simply dial 1-900-468-NHRA. That's the NHRA Now action line that keeps you up to date with all the excitement of championship drag racing. That's right. In qualifying and the final eliminations day, we have an updated report for you each day. So give me a call, won't you? 1-900-468-NHRA. Steve?
Jerry Amato, the wife of Joe, one of the many wives who play such an important role in their husbands' drag racing careers. Husbands and wives spending time together in this sport. Now, Bob Fry, our resident sportsman expert, tells us about a couple down in Texas, John Harrison and Barbara Lewis, who have unique viewpoints of drag racing. He from behind a welder's mask, and she through the lens of a camera.
Throughout the last 15 years, John Harrison has built championship-winning cars for dozens of sportsman drivers. The majority of cars have run in the Superstock and Competition Eliminator classes. But John says there's one particular model he's worked on a little too frequently.
If I never see another 68 Camaro, I'll be happy.
In addition to cars, Harrison also builds custom intake manifolds, starting from scratch with 4 by 12-foot sheets of metal. His customers include some of the biggest names in sportsman racing.
We built all the Nickens Brothers manifolds for about 3 years, and now we build manifolds for other people. We've probably built 250 of them in the last 3 or 4 years.
Harrison's business also includes restoring old muscle cars, and another rather unique sideline, exporting cars and parts to Australia for racing down under.
It says one Z24 kit, some assembly required. It's really an interesting facet of the business. About 2 years ago, an Australian came to the United States and bought a Pro Stock Camaro and basically disassembled it and took it back to Australia and went to tearing them up.
Of all the cars Harrison has built, he says his favorite is the Coleman Roddy Firebird, which won the World Championship in 1984. Coincidentally, it's because of that car that John met his wife Barbara, a division photographer for National Dragster magazine.
I met John in I think it was 83, when he was working on a car for Coleman Roddy. He was building it here in a shop that he had, and I went over to take pictures of it for the National Dragster.
Barbara has been working for a real estate company in Houston for 10 years, but her connection with drag racing goes back even further. To look at her, you wouldn't think this mild-mannered office manager had such a passion for drag racing. But in the mid-'80s, she managed the old Houston International track in addition to shooting photos for National Dragster. Barbara finds an interesting contrast between the quiet at the office and the roar of the drag strip.
It's kind of hard to compare the two. I like being outdoors, so I do enjoy that part of it.
With Barbara photographing the cars and John building them, drag racing is the center of the Harrisons' livelihood. And that could stretch even further if their 12-year-old son Daniel decides to race one day. And Barbara says it would be fine with them if he wanted to.
No, I'd have no problem with him racing because having watched the sport like I have, it's really, I think, a very safe sport. And of course, John would build the cars, so and we know what type of work he does. So he would be in a good, safe car.
You know, one of my favorite places to sit to watch any drag race is fairly close to the starting line, where I can really appreciate all the excitement of the starting and the staging. And of course, that phenomena, unique to drag racing, the tire-blazing burnout. To tell us a little bit about the techniques involved in accomplishing the proper burnout, here's our technical expert, Big Daddy Don Gerlitz. Don?
A lot has been said about burnouts, and I'm sure there's some of you there that think we do the burnouts just for part of the show. That's not true. And one of the masters of a good burnout is John Force. he makes a nice, long, smooth burnout. Some of the things that you shouldn't do is, number one, you shouldn't have the engine RPM going up and down at stuff, because that's not good for the drivetrain. Another thing you shouldn't do is over-rev the engine. That's if you hear the engine go real high. That's not good. That's hard on parts. The perfect burnout doesn't want to be too far down the track, because if you go too far down the track, the tires will cool off coming back. And if you go too short, you don't get the tires hot enough. Then after the burnout is completed, the last important procedure is that the crew chief back you up exactly into your tracks so that you launch off in that nice sticky rubber. This is what it takes to make a nice, good burnout that's effective, and you get the maximum ET and speed out of your car.
Stop on the Winston Championship calendar. NHRA drag racers try to give something back to the local community. Some drivers will visit local hospitals. Others will give public service speeches to civic groups. And at some races, actual events are held to help raise money for charity. Such was the case in Pomona, California, when NHRA staged its 4th annual Celebrity Challenge to benefit Special Olympics.
The need to compete burns deep within the heart of every drag racer, giving off a white-hot heat that is satisfied only by victory. But there is another breed of athlete whose competitive fires, while just as intense, gives off a warming glow. These are Special Olympians, mentally retarded children and adults who discover courage and self-esteem through organized sports. The two groups share many similarities. Both reward winners with medals, and finish lines are the scene of hugs and tears. This common bond is further reinforced by events such as the Celebrity Challenge, one of many charity events staged by the NHRA.
That's a program we've done for 3 years. It's contributed over $65,000 to the California Special Olympics. The celebrities are a combination of people from professional sports. We have a number of people who are in television and out of Hollywood, and all of those people certainly support the Special Olympics. It's a big program to all of those people.
For some of the celebrities, this was their first exposure to the sport, so all enrolled in Professor Bernstein's course, Drag Racing 101.
When you see this bulb flicker and it goes yellow, push the accelerator as hard as you can to the floor, as quickly as you can.
The lessons learned in the simulator were then put to use on the track behind the wheel of specially prepared Oldsmobile cutlasses. After several enlightening qualifying runs, the celebrities turned their attention to the real stars of the weekend, the Special Olympians.
This is a hand brake here. We don't have a foot brake. It's a hand brake.
The kids and the celebrities learned firsthand about some of the car's basic functions. Then Bernstein and baseball player Jack Clark helped a couple of kids into the cockpit for a ride down a fantasy quarter mile.
David, you're going to be right in there now, son. You're ready.
The excitement of the cars and the stars left a lasting impression on the Olympians.
Well, we brought about 42 athletes here from the Pomona Valley Special Olympics. I'm very glad to be here, and our athletes enjoyed it very much, and so did I. It was a fun day for the kids and for me.
Oh, it was great. I was in the car. It was great. You went, wow.
I love it.
Keenan Bernstein, he's nice.
You're in trouble.
The thrill of sitting in a top fuel dragster was in no way limited to age or size. Former LA Raiders quarterback Rusty Hilger thought he'd give it a try.
Someone come and push.
While Hilger may have had trouble squeezing into the top fueler, he was more than comfortable behind the wheel of his Oldsmobile. In the final round, he captured the championship for the 2nd year in a row and helped raise nearly $30,000 for the charity. By the end of the day, the Special Olympians had learned firsthand about the exotic world of drag racing. But more importantly, the celebrities and racers had learned why these people are justifiably considered special. It is summed up in the Special Olympics motto, a belief shared by all who compete, whether on the drag strip or the more twisting path of life. Let me win, but if I cannot win, let me be brave in the attempt.
Somehow, the word brave in this instance is an understatement. Well, that concludes another week here on NHRA Today. But rest assured, we'll be back with a full lineup for next week's show. We'll have highlights from all the professional categories here at the Winston Invitational, plus sportsman action from Amarillo, Texas. You'll meet Keith Black, one of the legends of drag racing. And you'll see how NHRA Vice President of Competition Steve Gibbs gets away from it all. For Dave McClellan, Don Gerlitz, and Bob Fry, I'm Steve Evans, thanking you for joining us on NHRA Today.
NHRA Today has been brought to you by Castrol GTX, engineered for today's smaller cars, and by Firestone, makers of Firehawk performance tires for the street, the track, and the strip, tires that meet the test. Promotional consideration provided for and a fee paid by this special offer from Diamond B.
For years, you've all loved Diamond P Sports Home Video, Decade of Thrills, the ultimate drag racing experience. Well, I've got some great news. Don Perdome and I are back with the all-new 90-minute Decade 2, the thunder of the 80s. Eddie Hill cracks the fours, then flies away. Connie Coletta marches past 290. Ed McCullough and John Collins will never forget the Cajun Nationals of 84, nor Kenny Bernstein, Maple Grove, PA, 87. Glidden won his 50th and his 75th in the same decade. Don Gay Jr. survived the unsurvivable. It's all in Decade of Thrills, too. To get your copy, send $24.95 to the address in your screen, or better yet, call 1-800-767-1600. Visa and MasterCard accepted, no CODs. Call now, 1-800-767-1600.
NHRA Today has been a presentation of Diamond B Sports.